Hey all, we'll get started in a minute or so as more people trickle in. In the meantime, if you're here, would love to hear where you're from. What do you plan on getting out of this session? So feel free to post comments on YouTube comments. Awesome. Let's get started. So today we're going to talk about something that I've developed called Nail Framework. Essentially, the goal with Nail Framework is to help job seekers find jobs. But I believe it's not just for people who are looking for jobs. It's generally a good career development and planning framework. And so I'd love to share as much as I can today, but feel free to post questions, anything else. Hey, Mark, nice to see you here. Um, so yeah, there you go. So the four pillars of Nail Framework are networking, applying, introspection, and learning. And I'm sure everyone here has done one or all of them. And so none of this would be brand new to you. But one thing I would ask is um, tell me how many of us have started our journey, especially when we're looking for jobs, with applying. Um, Usually we do this. We're like, hey, I want to get a new job. You go out and do search, and then you start applying to these jobs. And after a while, you're like, well, this is not working. So you get to networking. And so you start talking to people, you start socializing a little bit more. I've heard this comment from a few bunch of people that said um, a good way to tell when someone is looking for a job is when they start becoming a little more active on LinkedIn. So usually that comes after we've seen some delay in responses from our applications. Then, when that doesn't work, we find out either by talking to people or just looking at LinkedIn profiles that we need to upskill. So we start learning a little bit. We pick up a few courses here and there, um, but generally the learning is uh, out of out of necessity from seeing what we're missing from the rest of the network. And then finally, when even that doesn't work, then we sit back and think, hey, what am I actually looking for when it comes to this job search? Um, do I just want more money? Am I actually looking for a job that puts me in a different role, or am I in for just I'm fed up of my colleagues at my current position. I'm just looking for a better team out there, and so it's usually like the last step where we sit back and think, and sometimes the impetus is a positive one, which is you've actually received some job offers, and you're like, oh, now that I have like three job offers from very different companies, let me now think what I really want and which one should I go for. Um, but my request, if there's one thing you would take out of this session, would be just reverse that order. So start with introspection, and then based on your introspection, focus on learning and upskilling. Then kind of socialize with people, network, talk to people, and then you'll realize you actually have way more job opportunities because, as you know, one time chatting with Mark, I found out there's this whole thing called the hidden job market, which is just people don't post jobs. They're lazy, or they're like, the whole process is so convoluted. People apply to jobs that have no business applying to them, and so people first look to find candidates and talent out there that's without even making a job posting. So then I think you would once you know, oh, this person or this company is looking, then you should be applying. And if you follow it in this flow, not only does it flow really well, your job search and your networking and applications are very targeted, but also you end up with a job that you would really love. And that's generally my motto in life. If there's one thing Skip Round has been built to do, it is to get you a job that you will love. So let's start with introspection. It might be something that you feel like you do just once. You sit down, you think about your career goals and stuff, you write them down, and that exercise is over. Um, my thinking is that that is a great first step. You should definitely do that if you haven't done it already. But to take it a step further, once you have written down your core values, you have figured out what your strengths and weaknesses are, certain areas of improvement that that you know that you can work on. Then get into this habit of what I like to call like a work journal. So just every day, whether you are already employed, you're passively looking, or you're actively looking, just go back to your past experience and think of stories that you've from your past career that you have that you can write down and learn from. And it should be a mix of both good and good stories where your like strengths are showing, but also stories where you learn something new. And these are great things that you can bring up in interviews, but also these are good to just reflect on and figure out what kind of job you want to look for next. Um, one thing that I would add there is like, um, and we'll get into a little bit of like how others can help you with this, but not only is introspection just thinking and reflecting by yourself, but it's also another part of introspection is like involving others, your community, your friends, into this journey, and then asking for feedback as well. So keep that in mind. A few things that I would avoid when it comes to like introspection: try not to just compare yourself to others. Make sure that um, you are comparing in a healthy way. So even if you're like, oh, I want to be my boss's boss in 5 years, it's not a competition. It's more an aspiration. So you see them as a role model for you, and then that's a positive feeling that will push you forward. Um, don't get into this unhealthy habit of comparison, and make sure your emotional well-being is kept in check. Um, when you're thinking of your work stories, it's often easy to forget that there are a lot of things that we do outside of our work that shine a very positive light on your attitude, your behaviors, your commitment, and aptitude even. And so, an example I'll give you: someone I heard, I want to say like a few years ago. Uh, the role that I was looking for was an IT manager, and I'd never hired someone for that role. I had always hired engineers, software developers, designers, product people. So this was the first time it was more of a administrative role. So I didn't really know what kind of person I was looking for. But then this candidate came across, and he mentioned he was a three-time Ironman athlete, and I was like, oh, that's incredible. We did the technical round. There were like a bunch of other candidates that we were looking at, and I ended up choosing him more because of I knew the kind of grit and commitment it takes for you to be an Ironman. And this was a role where he would have to talk to a bunch of people. There will be things thrown at him that he would have to like take with great personal sacrifice. Because when you're an IT manager and something goes out in the middle of the night, you have to take care of it. So that outside of work thing that he shared with me boded really well for him, and he got hired. So I would definitely recommend thinking about those achievements as well. Moving on, like once you've done all this reflection, one thing you realize is that if your goal is, let's say, I'm an IT manager today and I would like to be director IT in some company. And so now you'll start looking at these other job titles and job descriptions out there, which will help you figure out what are the skills that I'm missing today. And that is a great way of tailoring your learning journey. And I'm personally a big believer in lifelong learning. Anytime you can, if you see me with some free time, whether I'm driving somewhere or when I'm like walking my dog, I always have something that I'm listening to. So that in itself is a good habit to cultivate. But to top it up, having a targeted approach towards learning can really shorten the time that it takes for you to get to that next level. And so in the previous in the intersection step, we talked about, figuring out your skill gaps. This is when you start to kind of like bridge those gaps. Mentorship and coaching is great. There are one thing I found that many times we get mentors in unexpected ways. I've always enjoyed working with good recruitment folks that, oftentimes they would be pitching you a job, but if you just talk to them, they'll give you pointers that are great generally for anyone who's looking for a job. So incorporate those. Of course, there are coaches that you can pay and use their services. Workshops and conferences are great as well for learning. I would encourage something that, if you had a choice of a conference or a workshop, I would go for a workshop, because if you're in cases when you're entering a new market or a new industry, a workshop gives you something tangible that you come out with, that you can show, you can keep improving on it, you can publish it on LinkedIn. So workshops are great, and if you get an opportunity, I would say take it. Um, some things again to avoid here is, oftentimes we start believing as we work on certain types of problems that we're kind of an expert because I have 15 years of experience in something. And I can tell you from experience, I've I've written, I don't know, millions of lines of code, but every day when I'm writing my next line of code, there's something new I learn. Every developer that I've talked to, that I've interviewed, they've taught me something new, and so there's nothing like an expert in anything, and more so today when so many things are going to change when it comes to like AI. So even if you feel you're an expert in your field, go out and seek opportunities where you can incorporate AI, and that's a new skill that you would develop and use. Um, while we're on the topic of AI, I'll mention something that I heard recently, which was really interesting. Is um, what people are seeing is that AI is, today at least, really good at replacing mediocrity. So if there is something that you're really good at, or you feel you're really good at, I would go use ChatGPT, Grok, whichever AI you prefer, and see where that level stands in your field when it comes to AI. And that puts you in a great position in interviews and like talking to your peers about what AI's impact can be in your field. And it can be a great conversation to have in an interview as well. One last thing on learning is we oftentimes focus too much on our technical or your job related core skills. The thing that we miss is just human skills, and more commonly they're known as soft skills. But I'm a big fan of um, Simon Sinek, who likes to call them human skills and not soft skills. So human skills are things like working with colleagues and being personable, and looking at when someone is struggling, helping them out. So those kind of skills, as much as we would think people are just born with it, these are definitely things you can develop. I can tell you, when I first came to Canada, coming from a culture in India to a culture in Canada, it was night and day. And just over time, I learned how people behave, how I'm expected to behave, but also how friendlier Canadians are when it comes to, there was like way less competition in workplace. Everyone was helping each other. So I just learned a ton. My first company was Danimark, um, which was I guess distribution, I would say, but they had marketing, sales, they had a warehouse, they had a service arm. So I kind of like looked at everything. I did everything that I could, and I developed so many skills there that when I went back to engineering, I realized that those human skills that I learned put me in a very fast track to management in software, even though I like technically I had taken like 6 7 years of break since I had written a line of code to going back to software development. And so I can't tell you how many times human skills put you just over the edge. Another good one is language skills, and that's something generally like immigrants struggle with. I struggle with it quite a bit. But one thing that helped was, just watching tons of content online that's in the language that you're planning to get proficient at. So for me, that was English. Another thing I tried to do was just speak in English even at home, and so that just put me in that mindset of like, whenever I'm stuck on a word, I won't fall back to my mother tongue. I would just say, let me find out how do you say it in English. And then when I noticed it, I would try to incorporate it in my language. So that's how I improved my language skills. But those two things, human skills, language skills, make sure you're focused on those as well. Um, Next, let's talk about networking. And like this is one of those things I would say like very recently I've been trying to get better at. So this is not in any way a best practice guide, but it is just something that I'm learning. So I'm here to share with you guys. So networking doesn't, at least the way it was presented to me forever, was you're going to someone and meeting with them because you'll get something out of them. And so the way I am, I never felt that was a good enough reason for me to talk to anyone. So I just became this person who never went out, never went to any kind of events, because I always felt like if it's a networking event, it's like I'm going in with something that I want out of people, and that just like turned me off so much that I never did it. But more recently, I've realized that you could view networking in the opposite way. So if people are coming there because they want something, you can show up because you want to give something. And so, go out and tell people what is it that you're good at, what is it that you can help them with. Ask them, hey, what are you struggling with? And that's a great way of networking as well. And you never know where that would lead. Eventually, someone would turn around and say, "Oh, you've been helping me for like a week or 2 weeks. You know what? Like, can we just like hire you, even if it's like a small contract or like a small side gig, whatever it may be. Things might come around in unexpected ways. So that's at least my approach. Go out with the mindset of I'm here to help, and that might put you at ease. Another good thing that I've seen is there's a difference between being an introvert and being awkward. So introverts are essentially people who lose energy through the day as they have social interactions. So I know I am an introvert, but that doesn't really mean I can't talk to people. What that really means is that I'm just like I lose energy through the day if I'm asked to talk to a bunch of people. So do something before the networking event that kind of fills you with energy, like maybe listen to an audiobook, watch a YouTube video. So now you have something that you're like bursting to talk someone about, and then just go find a couple of people who are probably like interested in a similar topic, and just be like, I'm here to meet one or two people, and that might put you at ease as well. The other thing about networking is like there is bunch of opportunities to do networking asynchronously. So it doesn't always have to be in a big setting. Just posting on LinkedIn uh, is networking. Another good one where like for some people posting on LinkedIn can be a little daunting, and it's and I can see that we often don't realize how much we know and how much value we can provide by sharing what we know with the world. But one good way to get started, and that's how I started. If you look at my LinkedIn, um, for the first few weeks, I just went found other interesting people, and when they posted something, I started replying to their comments, and it started with like, "Oh, great post! Hey, that was awesome," or just like liking their stuff. And then as I started reading more and more, I started building certain opinions of my own, and the post started getting slightly longer and slightly longer. And then so all of these, as I'm commenting, I'm feeling a little bit more comfortable with LinkedIn and posting. And eventually I was like, okay, now maybe I can write a post without someone else's prompt post. So I just started writing, and then I wrote just as I talk. I didn't use ChatGPT, but I would say if you have to, definitely use it. Get what the output from ChatGPT. It's great at brainstorming for sure. And then just rewrite it in your own voice. So I would discourage just blindly posting as is from ChatGPT, but yeah, take it as a first draft, rewrite it, and then post it. Things to avoid when it comes to networking, and that's just my take again. I don't like over promoting for anything. So even if you're looking for a job, um, having one or two posts that you're telling the world, "Hey, I'm open to work," is great. You can always have that as a footer in every post of yours, where it's like, "Hey, I'm open to work," or another way of like I've seen a few people do this is not only are they open for work, they've also created like I'm open for consultation. So here, hire me for 30 minutes or hire me for an hour. Like I'm an iOS developer. If you're struggling with something with Swift UI, I'm an expert at that. Just call me for 30 minutes. This is what I charge. And that might be your foot in the door in a company that's looking for like quick help. And so that's something that you can start looking into as well. But yeah, just refrain from over promotion. But yeah, think of creative ways that you can provide value to the community. And then don't disregard follow-ups when it comes to applications. So that's one thing I think a lot of us forget to do is we apply to a job, then we wait, and then for some we get a rejection email, for some we get, hey, I would like to talk to you. But then the vast majority that you would call like ghosting, that we don't get any response, we just ignore them. And so I think there are two main reasons for it. One is like most of the times we don't even have a repository where we know exactly all the jobs we applied to. So we don't even know who to get back to. But even if we do, there's this barrier of like, wait, I already applied. The person hasn't responded. What can I say now to change their mind? And I think that difference comes from our so, like an example in the real world would be I walk up to my wife and I say, "Hey, let's go out." And then she doesn't reply. And I go, "Okay, so I already asked. Maybe she's not interested." And so I go back and sit. But then because I can see that person, I can tell whether she heard me, but it was like, she was busy with something way more important than going out. And so maybe she'll get back to me later. Or in some cases, I'll be like, let me just repeat quickly and then see if she heard me. And then she will reply, "Oh yeah, we'll go in like 15 minutes. Give me 20 minutes, or let me go do that or this." And then she'll reply. And so it's easy to tell when someone didn't hear you in real life. But when it comes to online, we just assume when we sent an email or when we applied, someone saw it, really thought about it, and then they decided, I'm not going to reply to this person. That almost never happens. So, as a hiring manager myself, so many times I've missed replying to people. Like the applications come in, I'm just stuck at like the fifth person that I'm talking to, but there are like a bunch of people below. But if someone followed up with me, just I would be like, oh wait, this person is like, getting back to me. Let me quickly respond to them. And so oftentimes that can elevate your sequence in the queue that the hiring manager is going through, or they might just totally have missed the application that you submitted. And this time, when you submit it or like you do a follow up, they will like get back to you. So make sure get into the habit of following up with hiring teams for sure. I'll leave a few here. And again, like these slides will be available after I'll post it on LinkedIn or wherever, so you guys can get that. The last thing is applying thoughtfully. And if you went through those three, you did your introspection, you did upskilling as much as you think was important, and then you're networking with people. There'll come a time, a you'll obviously be searching. One of the things you would do is subscribe to LinkedIn, Indeed, whatever, to get like job updates. Um, but also through your non-network, you'll start getting interest about whether it's a job opportunity or someone is just looking to talk to someone. So whatever it may be, now that you've done all of this work, applying becomes quite easy. And given with tools like Skip Round, it's like becoming easier and easier. But doing that at the end is a great way to put yourself and set yourself up for success. So um, customizing your application, I think that's one of those things that almost everyone knows. And there's a funny paradox that I've seen. What happens in most things in life, um, well, not most things, but let's say like something that happens with a lot of things is when you try something, it doesn't work, you go a little bit higher, and then it still doesn't work, and then so you keep trying harder and harder, and eventually you get it, right? So the curve is low effort, because you want to just see like, if I just apply a little bit of effort, will I get something or not? And then you don't get, and then so you go like, oh, let me apply a little bit more effort, and then so and so forth. When it comes to job applications, oftentimes the trajectory is the opposite. We start with a lot of gusto. We customize our application. We look at a resume. We really tailor it to the first couple of jobs that we're looking for. And then when we don't hear from someone, we start going down this path where our energy is down. We don't feel like we're good enough. And we start blindly applying to jobs. So we just go like easy apply, easy apply, easy apply. I literally saw a post from one of the influencers that said, I think it was Workday, that asks you to create an account before applying to a company. Although I agree, it's a pretty stupid tactic for a company to create friction for good candidates to apply to them. But what he suggested was, the moment you see Workday, don't apply. And what tells me like most people's mindset is that this is a numbers game. The more you apply, the more you're increasing your chances of getting an interview call, and that might be true and it might work for some. But again, you're leaving something to chance. Versus if you went through this exercise, now you would have a select few companies or a select few teams that you really want to work with. And so my recommendation would be, now take the time, application by application, and apply to specific jobs with tailored resumes. Do your research, especially when you are up for an interview. But if you can do your research while you're writing your cover letter, that's incredible as well. Showcase as much as you can how you are unique and different from everyone else that might be applying. For me personally, that was and that's funny as well, because initially I thought my background in marketing was such a waste of time for me in my career, because I felt, okay, now I started as an engineer, I did an MBA, 2 years gone, I worked in a company as a marketing manager, 5 6 years gone, and now I'm like a consultant, now I'm getting into this engineering field, and what a waste of time. Like, there's nothing on my resume I can put for those years. But then what I quickly realized was that was my unique selling point. It was the one thing that almost no other engineer had on their resume, which was, I had a business degree and I was good at promotions, marketing. So my first thought was, let me go find jobs that are in advertising, that are in marketing agencies that are looking for engineering talent. And that was great. I got like tons of interest from those jobs. It's just, I realized the culture fit wasn't there, or like I didn't see the impact. So then again, because I knew what kind of person I am, what kind of impact I wanted to have, I could reject those companies. But still, I got offers from managerial positions, because they felt one of the gaps they had with their current talent was engineers understood engineering, but when it came to business, they couldn't give a shit, because they were like, you're just business people, you just care about the money, and I care about, like writing good code and just the craftsmanship and stuff. And they felt with me they could get best of both worlds. And so that became my unique selling point. So make sure you showcase that on your resume, whether it's in your professional summary or cover letter, but do bring it up. Some things to avoid here. Again, don't overlook your human skills. Make sure if you are good at something, demonstrate it, showcase it. Don't ignore your gaps and overlaps. Highlight them. Be honest, truthful. Like tell them here's why the gap exists. And even if you don't have to highlight them during the application process, make sure you have an answer for the interview steps. And mostly there is something positive you can draw from your gap, something positive you can draw from having overlaps in your career. And finally, just use LinkedIn as much as you can. Like all the steps that we talked about previously, like networking, applying through LinkedIn doesn't really mean that you have to use their version of the resume. You can still upload tailored resumes to LinkedIn. But applying to LinkedIn through LinkedIn is great. A lot of companies are now using LinkedIn as their pretty much as their ATS. And then I'll just give you a quick thing about ATSs. There's nothing scary, more scary in the world than something that we don't understand. And being on the hiring side, I can tell you there is no ATS out there that's so smart and so sophisticated that hiring managers can blindly rely on it. At the very least, for small to, I would even say like medium large companies, they have ATSs. But essentially, what an ATS is, even if you see the full form, is application tracking system. It's not like some AI tracking system, or like, some have AI features. But as a hiring manager, I never could trust the AI of an ATS. And I can tell you, I've spoken to a bunch of recruiters, hiring managers, all have said the same thing, that we do use the ATS to make sure we're keeping track of like who's in which stage of the interviewing process. But most of them don't want to rely on AI auto rejecting or AI, auto sending emails. They would One of the things that they do help with is just sorting the candidates in a way that you're seeing the most relevant, what the AI thinks the most relevant at the top, and then going through that. And that's where I think the follow-ups are super important, because the ATS could have made a mistake in that ordering. And so when you do a follow-up, you basically avoid being like buried somewhere down, where the person doesn't even reach to you before someone is hired. So don't be afraid of an ATS, but do use tools like Skip Round to tailor your resume, so that when someone does look at your resume, it comes off as very tailored and pointed to the application. Now, I would say you could end there, but if you keep the camera rolling, I would talk to you about three additional things. So we talked about the four pillars. Now, those four pillars are just like too many things to do, but you don't have to do everything yourself. So I'll quickly walk you through the next few slides, which talks about how there are things that you can do yourself. There are things that you can solicit the help from the community, and then generally what technology can help you with. So first is self-guided. So what I can do in each of those, networking, applying, introspection, and learning. Um, Thanks, Mark. Yeah, let's go. So for networking, it's on you to initiate connections. There are times when people will reach out to you if you do a good job on your LinkedIn profile. Recruiters can often find you, but just take it on yourself. I was recently listening to a LinkedIn live, but I think his name is Gaurav, who's a coach, and he mentioned something that I haven't seen a lot of people do, which is part of your networking is also outreach. So so that's something you do after you've gone through your introspection. You know the kind of jobs you want. then you can tailor your outreach to just the few select people that could help you land your job or just get you an introduction, even referral in companies. But you can also do outreach to like recruiters. So that's like, that is pretty much their job to find candidates. So a lot of recruiters and HR folks would be happy to just have someone in their network that they could possibly in the future pitch to a job opening, or someone who's looking for a job. So you can just do outreach for recruiters and people in the industry. But also another good way of doing outreach is finding like common ground with someone who is in a company that's your dream company, or someone who's doing a job that is your dream job. So initiate that connection. Don't go and say like, hey, can you refer me? You can say something like, hey, I would like to, there's something that we have in common. Maybe like we went to the same school, or maybe, we both worked at this company, but at different times. So find a common ground and then go, I would love to hear your career journey. Or like, how about a cup of coffee? Like we both live like, in the same city. Maybe I can come downtown sometime and grab something. And so initiate that connection, that first touch. Um, in the webinar that I talked about, um, someone literally with that specific tactic ended up landing their job and like a big like doubling their salary as well. So you never know how these connections can pan out in the future, but take that first step. And it's a little bit getting out of your comfort zone for people like me who are introverted, but that's something that's, I think, worth it. Um, on the apply front, again, it's on you to craft each application with your personal touch. The thing that I would avoid here is don't try to make your resume too pleasing to the eye. Standard resume formats work well, and they work well for a reason, because as a hiring manager, you're just looking at a ton of them, and having the same thing at the same place is very helpful, and it's just pleasing to the eye. It's easy for you to scan, and so yeah, even if you're using online tools, just make sure you use like the most basic and standard resume format. When it comes to introspection, again, you can do tons here. Just like one of the tools that I've heard and seen people use is the SWOT analysis, which is strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And so take that time, think of what I'm good at, what are my weaknesses, what opportunities lie in front of me. And sometimes you'll find the same thing that you were afraid of, that you thought as a threat, can be spun up into an opportunity for you. So AI is a great example of that. So many of us might see, like me as a software engineer, someone who writes code, I'm like, holy shit, AI has started now writing code way better than I can. So is that a threat? Well, maybe it's a threat, but also it's an opportunity for me to show to my next, interviewer that I'm leveraging AI to like triple X my productivity. And so that's an opportunity for you to showcase in your next interview. So yeah, like spending the time thinking about each things that you're afraid of is a great way of like both understanding and also like using that as something to talk about during your interviews. Um, on learning, I would say, uh, for most of us, like time is of essence. So don't just blindly spend time on learning anything and everything. That's a lot of what I do, and I wouldn't recommend it. I would say a good way is, again, use your introspection and then find your skill gaps that you have, and find courses and resources that can help you learn around those things. Um, so the next up is community, and let me define community a little bit. So it's friends and family, which is the most common place where we go, but it's also people who we can potentially find that would be willing to be our mentors. And these could be ex-colleagues. These could be, again, on LinkedIn, someone you reached out as an outreach campaign. It could be your peers. So if you're an iOS engineer, maybe another iOS engineer that you can get in touch with. Coaches who are, who get paid, great resource, I would say. Oftentimes I've heard a critique about coaches. It's like, oh, they just give you a bunch of questions, and like you could have just done it yourself. And eventually you do a lot of work yourself. The coach is just there to guide you. But that's exactly what they are, right? Like if you look at sports, those, a sports coach often doesn't play. And the reason why they don't play is not because they can't play. Oftentimes, obviously, they can't play. But the reason why they don't play is because it's their role is not to really play. Their role is to guide you and tell you what to practice, and kind of develop that muscle, keep you on track, make sure that you're coming out for practice. So those are the things that coaches bring to the table. So if you find you're short of mentors or peers that can help you, like I think coaches is a great way to go as well. And then finally, there are these both nonprofit and for-profit organizations that can help you. So one thing I haven't mentioned here, and maybe we can touch on learning first, is when it comes to language, given that it's so important, just to get your foot in the door initially, like through the interview process, but even generally in your career as you progress, when you're working in a company, having higher language skills just puts you in a good place and all around. So an organization that I really benefited from was Toastmasters, where there are these groups around the world, where you can just show up, you sit down, you talk to the people there. Most of them are there to improve their language skills, so you definitely won't feel shy. If anything, you would feel at ease because everyone is there to learn that one thing. So feel free to join organizations like that. Um, but yeah, let's see. So friends and family, they can help you with introductions. When it comes to applications, right? Like applying is one of those things where you'll definitely get more rejection than acceptance. That's just the nature of the beast. Like the funny thing I always think of is like people say when you're looking for something, it's always in the last place you look. And of course, it's always in the last place you look because once you find it, you stop looking. It would be weird for you to then keep looking, and then you're like, oh, it was the third last place that I looked that I found it. So it's the same thing with jobs, right? Like you will definitely get more rejections than you get acceptance, because oftentimes when you start getting offers, you like pick one of them if you get two or three at the same time, and then you're like settled. So um, you know, friends and family can come in really handy to provide that encouragement, morale boost. Mentors, coaches, like I mentioned, they're great at helping you in all of these four. But specifically, if you have coaches, like they will help you put up a plan. And one word of caution on coaches, like I would say, go for a coach that either has helped people in your specific industry or the specific type of role you're in, or someone who has actually been in that role before. So there's this guy I know. He's building a product today that helps immigrants match with coaches that kind of have an overlap on their background. So the name of the product is Prosfada. He's still building it, and it's not fully public yet, but that would be a great tool to use. But also just like use your good judgment when you are shopping for coaches. Make sure you interview them and find out whether they have done work with someone like in your situation before. Um, all right, so that's I think about community. Another thing actually on learning as well, coaches and mentors are great at providing you with good resources that are really tailored to your situation. So leverage that. Um, Another form of community is these peer groups that you can find on LinkedIn, Facebook. Oftentimes they're kind of sketchy, and you might have people selling stuff in there. But I've noticed LinkedIn communities are slightly better than like Facebook, especially when it comes to like job search. So instead of only joining job search communities, which are not super great from my experience, you should join communities that are like, if you're a salesperson, join a community that's like, sales excellence. Or if you are like in marketing, join like a AI and marketing group, or like something like that. Just be creative, find communities that would provide both value and connections as well. There are also paid communities now, which I haven't tried personally, but if someone has, feel free to post in the comments if that works. The final thing here is software and technology, and specifically AI these days. So when it comes to networking, LinkedIn, huge asset. I can't believe if it wasn't for LinkedIn, I don't think any one of you would be here. So I'm finding great value from LinkedIn. In the past, I for the longest time I didn't even have a resume. It was just my LinkedIn profile that worked as the resume. So make sure your LinkedIn profile is up to speed. Um, just update it regularly. I don't think there's a limit, but like add more detail, as much detail as you can. LinkedIn will automatically just shorten it. But using keywords in your LinkedIn resume, or your LinkedIn profile rather, is great, because not only does it help when someone is reading, it also helps when a recruiter is searching for certain keywords when they're looking for people. So use it as like your website essentially. Um, Another thing that I recently heard was, and this is something I kind of ignored for the longest time, is there is this thing called essentially skills, but you can endorse people for skill, and you can get endorsements for skills. And so there was a time when LinkedIn was really pushing endorsements, and you would like log into LinkedIn and it was like, hey, endorse someone. They've stopped doing that, but apparently it's still helpful, because when someone is searching for a specific skill, let's say AI, and person A has more endorsements for the same skill versus person B, um, and this is just what I've heard, so I'm not really sure if it actually how it works. LinkedIn will put people with higher endorsements above people with lower endorsements, even with the same skill. So it might be helpful to solicit help to get these endorsements from your peers. But yeah, use LinkedIn. Another good app that I can recommend for in-person networking is Meetups. Download the app, find meetups online, go to these events, even if it's like an informational event. Like when I was, now I'm a little bit further away from downtown Toronto. Um, when I was in downtown, I would go to these meetups like every other week. Just like these were meetups for learning something about at the time, like Web3 was a thing, a big thing. So like crypto. I've been to meetups that had something to do with like backend versus iOS, Swift UI. So whatever you can find, just show up, and that's a great way of like meeting people, talking to other peers, or like managers. Someone might be hiring that you can get in touch with. So definitely use that in person channel. For applying, I think skip round. We're building tons of features. So today you can tailor your resume and cover letter, and I'll go over that quickly after this. Um, but you can also like use it to just keep track of your job. So like I mentioned, a lot of us forget to do follow-ups, and I think the reason is like we don't have that tracker that we can tell. So in skip round, it just automatically adds a follow-up action item for you that shows up on your homepage, that you can use after like 7 days, and you can use it as a task board to add anything else. For introspection, there's this app called MoodFit, which is pretty cool. It helps you track your mental health. So I would say like try that out if you're struggling with mental health, especially in the time when you're applying to jobs. ChatGPT is incredible. Even after I built Skip Round, there are a bunch of things that I would recommend using ChatGPT for to iterate on. So when it comes to ask ChatGPT to ask you questions, to help you brainstorm, to help you, think about your career path. So you can be like, here's my resume. Tell me like 5 different job titles I could be looking for, and it'll give you those, and it'll give you the rationale, and then you can just like keep going. So use ChatGPT. And then in Skip Round, we have built this feature where you can track any of these networking, applying, introspection, or learning activities that you do on a day-to-day basis. I feel like, given that the nature of application process is like very negative, you hear no's more than yeses. Having something that you accomplish every day puts you in a good mood, puts you like brings you back that energy that you lose. And so we built this tracker, or rather like a streak view, where you can see every day what did I do, and that puts you again in a good mood that you're accomplishing something from day 1 to 2. On learning, we have this AI coach that helps you with interview process. So based on the job application, it gives you interview questions. You can try it. You can record your video. You can self-assess. And then finally, tools like Coursera or Duolingo for language are great as well. So that's, I think, overall the Nail framework that I wanted to share with you today. Obviously, the technology is where Skip Round really shines. But as you can, as we went through, like these three channels can be used for the four pillars. So if you guys want, I'll quickly go over what we have in Skip Round today very quickly, but it should be like just a couple of minutes. So Skip Round, I talked about these like motivational tools. So you set your goals for the week, and then these goals are to help you stay on track. That, if you apply, it automatically tracks. If you do it through the platform, if you're networking, like you can manually track it. If you learn something, you can track it yourself. But also, like if you use the AI coach and do some of the interview questions, it automatically tracks that as well. You have your action items here, which are just either automatically created when you apply for an application, or you can just add yourself as well. How you use the app, we have a Chrome extension that shows up on Indeed and LinkedIn. You just have to install it first on Chrome, and then when you go back to your Indeed and LinkedIn, it'll show up as a little tab on the right. You can click that button to get the application in Skip Round. Then it'll parse, give you some job information that you can look at. And this is slightly better than what people usually post in job descriptions, because it's giving you like some of the important things right up top, and it's just predictable. You can see the same thing at the same place, and it gives you this like marching order essentially on the right hand side, which is like what steps you need to take. And most of these steps are automated with AI. So we'll generate a resume that's tailored to the job description, a cover letter, interview question. There's also this like landing page that automatically gets created that you can share. Oftentimes companies will ask you if you have a website. So this could be essentially your website. And again, this is tailored for that one application. It even says I'm applying for the position of XYZ. So you essentially have like a different website for each application you're applying to. Sorry. And then when it comes to the AI coach, we have, one question at a time. You can type it or you can record your voice, and it transcribes it for you. And then it gives you a quick rating from 1 to 10. And based on that rating, you can decide to like take another kind of take, or there's this feature called the rehearsal, which just for privacy concerns, we're not looking at these videos. They don't even come to our servers. You can click on the rehearse button. You can record yourself. Then when you stop recording, it just plays it back to you. So you can see yourself, as you're answering that question. And you can do that any number of times. None of this video gets stored anywhere. So it's just on your browser. You close the window, everything is deleted. But I thought this was a good way of rehearsing your Zoom interviews. And then finally, we have an iOS app that's coming up soon. It'll be essentially in the beginning, it'll be just so that you can track your habit of, your learning, applying, and Introspection is coming soon as well, but essentially the learning, applying, and networking activities that you do every day, you can track them on the app, and we'll have notifications to remind you every day to do one of those three or four things. So that's something that will be available for free. So yeah, that's pretty much it for today. And one thing I'll offer to anyone who's here still is book my time. I'd be happy to like go over the walkthrough of Skip Round with you, and it's 30 minutes overall, so we can also spend some time just talking about your career journey, and maybe I can help you with the introspection step, which I believe should be the first step anyway. So yeah, feel free to book my time or just go to skipround.com and you can sign up right away for a Skip Round. Any questions, if anyone has, feel free to post here. I'll quickly go over comments right now and see if there was any question that I missed. All right, so we have people from Canada, US as well. Awesome. So we're multi-country right now. Great to see you here. Oh, Dubai. Awesome. Yeah, Simon Sinek is great. Mark, I've read tons of his stuff. I watch his podcast every day, and it's a great human being. I'd love to be a leader that he wants to see in the world. Uh, yeah, that's right. So skills are very helpful because LinkedIn will be structuring the platform to be two types of profiles, candidates and businesses. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, that would be great. All right, cool. So if there are any questions, feel free to send them over to me or post it on LinkedIn. I'll definitely post this, and this, of course, webinar will be available as a recording on YouTube after, so feel free to share with people as well. But yeah, it was great having you all here. Cheers. Bye.